Okay, Be'ezus Hashem. Today's daf is Masechta Bava Metzia, daf Kuf Yud Gimel, 113. And we're going to begin from the Mishnah. The Mishnah is towards the top of the page. Hamalves Chabere. So I just want to throw up on the screen over here the psukim so that you will know what the topic of the Mishnah is talking about. It's very straightforward topic. The Torah tells us, when you make a loan to your friend, he didn't pay you back, right? So now you want to take a mashkain, you want to take collateral. So the Torah tells you that you're not allowed to walk into his house to grab a mashkain. Bachutz tamad, you have to wait outside. And the person that you lent money to, let him bring the collateral to you outside, but you're not allowed to enter his house. So that's a good trivia question. If you want to ask a question, where do you find in the Chumash that you're not allowed to enter somebody else's house? Then the answer is, if you loan somebody money and you're trying to take a mashkin, you're not allowed to enter his house. He has to come and bring it out to you. Now the Torah tells us, if he's a poor man and he gives you his pajamas, let's say, you're not allowed to take it and sleep with it. You're not allowed to overnight it. You have to you must return the collateral at sundown so that the owner may sleep with his pajamas. And when you do that, the borrower will give you a bracha, and Hashem will consider it as if you did tzedakah with the person. Lifnei Hashem lekacha. That's one pasuk, and this is in Devarim. In Parshas Mishpatim, it says in Kesef Talvas Ami, don't take interest. And then the same idea, the Torah repeats itself. If you take your neighbor's garment as a collateral, you must return it before the sun sets. And the reason is because that's his only pair of clothing. And so if you're going to keep it, how is he going to go to sleep? I mean, if he doesn't have pajamas, how is he going to go to sleep? If he screams to me, says Hashem, I will hear him, and I am compassionate, and therefore you're going to get punished for that. Okay, so let's begin the Mishnah. Okay, so someone makes a loan to his friend. Here, that we're going to learn the way Shmuel learned this Mishnah, which means that if you lend if you loaned money to a friend and he didn't pay you back, you're not allowed to take a mashkin at all. Midoraisa, you're not allowed to walk into his house. Midrabanan, you're not allowed to even take it when he brings it outside to you. So how are you supposed to ever collect a collateral from the person? Elba Bezdin. You go to Bezdin, and Bezdin has these court-appointed people who will stand outside the guy's house and collect the mashkin and then give it to the lender. And the shliach bezdin, even the shliach bezdin, the court appointee, should not enter the borrower's house to take the mashkin. Shenema, because the pasuk said, "Bachutz tamod," you have to stand outside. Let's say you took two mashkins, two collaterals, to get your loan paid back. Let's say you took as collateral, his pillow, and you also took as collateral his plowshare. So noitel echad umaniach echad. You're always gonna take one and place one. And Sheldon, we're in the Mishnah, and we're discussing over here when you take collateral from a person. So if he needs it at night, let's say you took his pillow, you have to make sure to return it to him at night. And if you took his plowshare, then you're not allowed to keep it during the day. You need to use it. So that's your mashkin. You're allowed to hold on to it at night, but during the daytime, you have to return it back to him. So that's what the Rashi says. You have to return his pillow every night. And his plowshare bayom during the day, because that's when he needs it. The imaze, if the borrower died, so now the lender does not have to return this back to the Yorshim, to the inheritors of the borrower. he could keep it to collect his loan obligation. In other words, he's now permitted to keep the mashkin. The mace, if the borrower died, so then you don't return the mashkin to the yarshim because there's no mitzvah. You sell it and basically you collect your debt from that. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel says this idea of collecting a mashkin and going every night to return it back to the guy, that only lasts for 30 days. For the person himself, you only be busy returning his pillow up until 30 days. But from 30 days and beyond, you sell it in Bezdin and collect your debt. Even if it's an item that he might need. Let's say it's his last pillow. So for 30 days, if he didn't pay you, for 30 days, you hold on to that mashkin. Beyond 30 days, you sell it and collect your debt. So now the Gemara discusses the Mishnah, and as I explained the Mishnah, Amar Shmuel said, Shliach Bezdin, the messenger of Bezdin. In other words, if the lender went to Bezdin, sent a court appointee to collect the mashkin. So minatchei, they remove it and they deal with it on the street. They take it from him, from the borrower when he's on the street. Aval mashkune loy, even a shliach Bezdin, right? A shliach Bezdin cannot forcibly enter somebody's house and take something from his house. That's what Shmuel said. So the Gemara asks a question on Shmuel. For Tnan, we learned in our Mishnah. Hi, Steve. We're just in the middle of the page here. On Kuf Yud Gimel. What's now? We learned in a Mishnah, Hamalves Chaveiroi, someone lends his friend money, Lo Yamshkenenu, he's not allowed to walk into his house and take the object. Ella Bebezdin, only a court appointee, he's allowed to go. That's the way we understand the Mishnah, that the lender himself cannot walk into the borrower's house and take a collateral. But it's a court-appointed person can do that on behalf of the lender. Michlal the bebezdin mashkinin. According to that, even a court appointee is allowed to go into the person's house and collect the mashkin. And this is not like what Shmuel said. Shmuel said that even if you work for bezdin, you can't just walk into somebody's house like a marshal. Amalei Shmuel said, you learned the Rishna wrong, you have to change the girsa. Ema lo yinatchenu ela bebezdin. If you lend your friend money, you cannot even take things on the street. Only a appointee can take collateral. A lender himself cannot take any collateral from the guy, not only in his house, but even if the borrower gives it to you on the street, you're not allowed to take it. Why? We're going to say a reason why in a moment. And he says like this: Hachinami mistavra. This is the logical way to learn the Mishnah, the way Shmuel understands the Mishnah. The Ketani Sefer, because in the end of the Mishnah it says, Lo yikonis lebeisa lital mashkoinoi. You're not allowed to walk into somebody's house to take a collateral. Money. Who are we talking about? Who's not allowed to walk into the house to take a mashkin? Is it the lender himself? Well, Meresha Shmamina. That already says, the first line of the Mishnah says, Hamalbas Chaveira, Lo Yamshkekena, you're not allowed to go into his house. So why does it repeat itself? Lo Yikonis Lebeisa, you're not allowed to go into his house. It says it twice. So Ella Lav Shliach Bezdin, that even a Shliach Bezdin, a court-appointed marshal, right, cannot walk into somebody's house and collect the mashkin on behalf of the lender. He also has to wait outside. Says the Gemara, if that's your only proof, says the Gemara, Lo Iria, I don't buy it. In other words, that's not a proof that the Mishnah is supportive to Shmuel. Hachi Kamar, I might think like this. Hamalves Chaveira, what the Mishnah means to say is, if you're the lender, Lo Yamshkinenu, El Bebezdin, you're not allowed to walk into this house and take a mashkin, only a court appointed a person. Michlal, the Bebezdin, a court-appointed marshal, Mimashkinin, could walk into the house and take the mashkin. And Ubal Choiv, and a lender, Afila Natuchi Namila, he's not allowed to even take a item from the street, to take it from the street. He's not allowed to, so that he will not come into his house to take his mashkin. Maybe there was a gezerah that a lender himself not only is not allowed to walk into somebody's house and take the mashkin, that's clearly in the pasuk, but also is not allowed to take a mashkin in the street. Why? Because he might, if you allow him to take mashkins in the street, he might walk into a person's house. But if you're a court-appointed marshal, perhaps you are allowed to walk into somebody's house and take a mashkin. But again, the point is that Shmuel holds nobody is allowed to walk into somebody's house and take a mashkin, even if you work for Bezdin. Rather, you have to stand outside, and the person, the lender, the borrower has to bring his mashkin out to the court-appointed person, and also to the lender if he's outside. Mosif Rav Yosef. Rav Yosef asked the question. The pasuk says, "Lo yachbol rachaim v'rechav." As a mashkin, you're not allowed to take his millstone. In other words, that's a kitchen item, and that aids the borrower to prepare food. So you can't take that as your mashkin. Now, how do you go into somebody? So it's mashma, right? You can derive from that. Okay, you can't take his kitchen item, but you can take his television set, right? That's what. So obviously, you're in his house. If it's other things, chabol, you're allowed to take it from his house. The Torah tells us, beged almona. If you lend a widow money, don't take her dress, right? But if you lend somebody else who's not a widow, let's say a regular guy, you're allowed to take a suit. Tachbol, you're allowed to walk into his house and take a suit. So who is walking into the house? Man, if you're talking about the lender himself, Haksiv, the pasuk says, "Lo soveil beisid lavet avoite." Clearly, the pasuk says that a lender cannot walk into somebody's house. So elulav, it must be shliach bezdin, that a court-appointed person, right, a marshal, could walk into the house and take those items. And that's not like what Shmuel said. Shmuel said that even a court marshal cannot walk into somebody's house and take a mashkin on behalf of the lender. Answers the Gemara, Tirgama Rav Yosef. Rav Yosef explained, Tirgama Rav Papa Bereid Rav Nachum Kamed Rav Yosef. V'amila Rav Papa Bereid Rav Yosef Kamed Rav Yosef. So, is it Rav Papa, the son of Rav Nachman, explained it? Or was it Rav Papa, the son of Rav Yosef, who explained it? That it's really L'oilim B'Bal Chayv. Really, a Bal Chayv, the pasuk is talking about the lender himself. And V'lava Ola B'Shnei Lavan, he gets two averas. One, if he walks into somebody's house, he's not allowed to walk into his house to take any mashkin, to take his television set. He can't take anything. And if he walks into somebody's house and takes his kitchen item, like his rechev or rechaim, his millstone, or he takes a beged almana, then he gets an extra lav. So that's really what the pasuk is talking about. So, but even a shliach bezdin, we can still maintain Shmuel's opinion that a shliach bezdin is also not allowed to walk into somebody else's house. Tashema, the pasuk says, the Torah tells you that as a lender, you have to wait outside. So, of course, I understand that the borrower is going to come out and bring you the item. And so what does the Torah say? That person, of course, we're talking about the borrower. Why does the Torah add the word ish? L'rabbis shliach bezdin. That even a shliach bezdin is a part of the subject of that pasuk. So look at the pasuk over here. The pasuk says bachutz tamid, staying outside. Okay, v'ha'ish, and that person also should what? That person is referring to a shliach bezdin, and what that pasuk is trying to say is that the shliach bezdin can walk in outside. He could be like the Mailav shliach bezdin. We go back in the Gemara's kiloiva. He's like the borrower himself. Just like the borrower could enter his own house, the shliach bezdin could also enter the borrower's house. So we see, not like Shmuel, that a shliach bezdin can walk into somebody's house and take the mashkin. Answers the Gemara, we go to Kuf, Yud Gimel Amud Beis, Loi, Shliach Bezdin Kamalva. The Shliach Bezdin is like the Malva. That Bechutz Tamid, you stand outside, the lender has to stand outside. And also, Ish, the Shliach Bezdin also has to stand outside. And he doesn't have a different halacha, a different rule, than the Malva. They both have to be standing outside. Toshma, come in here. Now, this is a clear brisa against Shmuel. Here, the Bryce is going to say that a court marshal, a court-appointed person, can walk into somebody's house and take the mashkin. Tashma im chovel tal mchmol salmas reyacha. If you're going to walk into someone's house and take his clothing, so then you have to return it every night. B'shliach bezdin akasim adam. That talking about a shliach bezdin that can walk into somebody's house. Maybe the Torah allows even the lender to walk into the house. Kishu Oimer, what the Brisa says, there's a pasuk that says, "Lo yisovel beisi laved avoita." You can't walk into somebody's house to collect a mashkin. Harei bal chayv amar. The Torah says clearly a bal chayv cannot walk into somebody else's house. The lender. Homani mekayim. How do I square off the pasuk in chovel tachbol samos reacha, which says that you're allowed to walk into somebody's house and take his clothing? That allows the court marshal to be able to do that. So that's not like Shmuel. Shmuel says that even if you work for the court system, you're not allowed to walk into somebody's house. And here we see a clear brisa that says not so. So the Gemara says Tanoyi, it's a machlekes Tanoyim, and Shmuel aligns himself with the Tana that this does not allow a shliach bezdin to walk into somebody's house. The Tanya we learned in a brisa, shliach bezdin shabola mashkoinoi, a shliach bezdin that wants to walk into somebody's house to take the mashkin. Lo yikonos lebeisa the mashkoinoi. He's not allowed to walk into somebody's house. He stands outside. And the other one, the borrower brings the mashkin to the court-appointed marshal. You stand outside, and that person. We learned in another brisa, a b'choiv that wants to go in to take a mashkin, go into somebody's house. Lo yikonos b'beis l'mashkinoi elo oime b'chutz. V'aloi nichnas u'moitzi lo mashkinoi. Shnema. A b'choiv is not allowed to walk into somebody's house, but he has to wait outside. Ushliach bezdin shabalam ashkainei. But if a shliach bezdin wants to walk into somebody's house, he's allowed to walk into somebody's house and take a mashkin. So we just did a whole exercise to understand the halacha of a shliach bezdin. Every bal choiv, a lender, is not allowed to walk into somebody's house to take a mashkin. A shliach bezdin, it's a machlekes tanoim. As one brisa says a shliach bezdin is not allowed to walk into somebody's house to take the mashkin, and one brisa says a shliach bezdin could walk into somebody's house and take a mashkin. Now the brisa continues. You're not allowed to take for a mashkin something that he uses as for food. Like he uses it to cook with, let's say a pot or something like that. The noisen, you have to leave for him mita umita. You have to leave for him 2 beds. Umatza la'osher. And if he's a rich person, you leave him a fluffy mattress. You can't take everything from his house. You have to leave him something that he can live with. Mita umita for a poor person, you leave 2 beds and a flimsy mattress. Loy, but only for him. You don't have to leave the bedding for his wife. Not for his kids. You can take their beds and confiscate that. Just like we leave stuff over for a borrower, that means a borrower, if he owes money, this word bal chayv means a borrower. It doesn't mean the lender. Sometimes it means lender, but here it means the one that owes the money. Just like we leave stuff that he could live with, a borrower, kach masadrin be'erechin. In erechin, the halachas of erechin, if you made a donation to Hegdish doesn't come and confiscate everything in your house. You have to leave him something that he could live with. So the Gemara says, klape laya, where are you pointing to? Ikasida be'erechin kasib. The Torah comes up with the concept of not confiscating everything from a borrower. That idea was said by the parsha of erechin, when somebody makes a donation to Hegdish and doesn't have the money to pay it. You have to read the brisa this way. Just like the Torah said, that don't take everything from somebody who made a donation to Hegdish. You have to leave him, like, let's say, his bedding and stuff like that, and a pot to cook with. So also a borrower that owes money and doesn't have where to pay back, you have to leave him something in his apartment so he can live there. Amamar. So we learned in the before, noisim mito matzul asher. You give him 2 beds and a nice mattress for a rich person. Now notice you give him 2 beds. Mito matzul saoni. Leman. Why do you leave 2 beds? You leave the beddings for his kids and the wife and kids, so you leave him 2 beds. Ha'amrit, but you said in the brisa, loy, only his bed you leave over. If he owes money, you can take the beds that of his wife and his kids and start selling it and take it from him. So why does he need two beds? So the Gemara is going to give you a fascinating reason that you leave him two beds because that's healthy to have two beds. Why is it healthy to have two beds? The day. Both beds are for him. Parte lomeli. Why should you leave somebody with two beds? So tchada de ochale, one bed you eat with, v'chada de zagale, and one bed you sleep with, and you distance the bed that you eat on to the bed that you sleep with. In other words, we are trying to encourage the person that after eating, he should walk 4 amas, he should walk 8 feet and then go to sleep. And therefore, by making his sleeping bed far away from where he eats, he's going to be a healthier person. Shmuel, like Shmuel the doctor taught us. Shmuel said, Kol yumila yadana susai. Wow. He said, I know how to heal every sickness. Levar mahani tlas. These sicknesses that if a person brings it upon himself, I don't know how to heal this. Mam de ochel ahina marira aliba de rekon. If someone eats a date that's unripened, a bitter date, on an empty stomach, before then you that leads to intestinal problems, and I don't know how to heal that. Uman de also mista de kitana retiva acharze, and somebody who puts a wet belt of made of flax on his body. I don't know exactly what sickness that brings you a person, but here Shmuel said, "Uman de ochel nahama v'loimiska abar gamide," and whoever eats bread and then doesn't take a walk after eating and then go straight to sleep, somebody does that and gets sick, I can't heal them. So in order to prevent the borrower from getting sick, we leave him with two beds, one that he eats on, and then another side of his apartment, we leave him the bed that he will sleep on. Tanitana Kamei Rav Nachman. The brisa, someone was reading a brisa to Rav Nachman. And this was the way we leave over people to live with on Erechem, kach mesadrim b'chayv. For somebody who owes money, we leave him stuff to live with. Now, Rav Nachman held that this brisa goes according to Rav Shimon ben Gamliel. And if we remember in the Mishnah, Rav Shimon ben Gamliel says that if someone owes you money, you can send in the marshal and sell everything that he has. You don't have to leave anything for him. Amalei, so Rabbi Nachman said to this person, Hashta zabunim mezabrinale, sadurim mesadrinale, you sell everything that he has. So you leave him over something. I mean, you have a right to sell everything that the person who owes you money, you're allowed to sell everything. So the Gemara says, Mima zabrinale, are you allowed to sell everything that the person has? But now, didn't we learn in our Mishnah, Machsa sakar balayla v'samachresha b'yoyim, you have to leave him over his pillow and his plowshare? So no. Tana Rab Shimon ben Gamliel Tana Kameh. It really, the brisa is Rab Shimon ben Gamliel. And Rab Shimon ben Gamliel has this strict opinion. When somebody owes you money, you're allowed to take a mashkin for 30 days. But after 30 days, no matter what it is, you can sell the mashkin and collect your debt. And this is what Rab Shimon ben Gamliel said. Rab Shimon ben Gamliel says that whatever he gives you, you're allowed to sell. So what are you telling me that the brisa says that you have to leave it for him? That's now we learned in the Mishnah. Rab Shimon ben Gamliel, let's say you take somebody's pillow. So the Torah tells us, return it to him every night. Rab Shimon ben Gamliel says, yes, that only lasts for 30 days. You only return it to him for 30 days. Beyond 30 days, you have to sell it with Bezdin. So you sell it, Bezdin sells it, and you collect your debt. So how could the Brisa say, oh, you leave it for him? If the Brisa goes according to Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, you're allowed to sell the debt. So umamai. Now we're trying to understand Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel. Does Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel say you're allowed to sell everything that belongs to the guy? Maybe the chikam Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel zubun and the gamri kamar. Did Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel say you're allowed to sell everything belonging to the borrower? Dilma hachikama. Maybe Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel means to say like this: for 30 days, hadele be'enai. You're allowed to you return it to him every night. But beyond 30 days, whatever he needs, you have to continue to return it. If it's his only pillow, you have to return it. Whatever is like luxury items that he doesn't really need, that's what you're allowed to sell. So the Gemara says, then if Rab Shimon Gamliel holds to that idea that people have luxury items, there's no such a thing like that. Every person that has items, it's not luxury, it's not extra. He really needs it. Even it's the most fanciest items, because Rab Shimon ben Gamliel has this concept that every Jew is a pechech. And therefore, when Rab Shimon ben Gamliel said that you're allowed to sell it, he meant that you're allowed to sell everything that the person has, because he can't tell you, oh, this is extra. There's nothing extra for a person, because every Jew is b'nei malachim. That's a very way to remember that. B'nei malachim. The Omer Abaye said, Rab Shimon ben Gamliel, Rab Shimon, Rab Shmuel, Rab Akiva, kul isviru lahu, kol Yisrael, every Jew, b'nei malachim is like a prince. Rab Shimon ben Gamliel, the Tanan, we learned in the Mishnah, I'm not going to go into that, but what the Mishnah is basically saying, Rab Shimon ben Gamliel is of the opinion that every Jew, we consider him as such a rich Jew that he can hold a pet raven. And therefore, he must be, every Jew has a din like a prince. And therefore we treat them as such. Rab Shimon, the Tanakh b'nei Malachim Sachin Shem Meverah Lagam saying B'Shabbos Kein Dachal Ochsa B'Choyel. Rab Shimon ben Omer Kol Yisrael b'nei Malachim. Same idea. Rab Shimon also holds b'nei Malachim. Rab Shmuel Rab Akiva the Tanya Rei Yisrael Noishim By El Zuz Love Itzlo By B'Mei Amonah Mafshid Noishim B'Menu Mabitzu May Itzlo Roiloi. Here, the Rabbi Akiva said. That the Tanakama of this brisa says, let's say somebody owes you money and he walks around with $1,000 Brioni suit, right? You're allowed to take it off from him and force him to wear a plain suit. But Tana Mishum Rabbi Shimon, Tana Mishum Rabbi Shmuel, Tana Mishum Rabbi Kiva, Kol Yisrael Rui Noisa, it's the law. Every Jew is worthy to wear a fancy suit. So therefore, every person is worthy to wear a fancy suit. So then B'nei Malachim, so you can't say, oh, what Rav Shimon ben Gamliel said is you're allowed to sell this extra stuff. And there's nothing extra for a Jew because he's a son of a king. So everything is necessities for him. So when Rav Shimon ben Gamliel says you sell, he means you can sell anything you want for somebody that owes you money. I'm just going to conclude in another minute and then we'll stop. You're trying to tell me that Rav Shimon ben Gamliel says that you sell what you keep what he needs, but you only sell what he doesn't really need. So you could always get him a cheaper version of a pillow, right? You could get him sell the fancy pillow and sell and hire and make him sleep with a not such a fancy pillow. What are you going to sell a plowshare? Every plowshare is the same. What's a cheaper version that you're going to give him? We're talking about not a plowshare. He had like a back scratcher, and that was made of silver, so that he used in the mikveh. So you sell that, then you give him something made of wood. Now, one more question, last question, and then we'll stop. The question is: so according to the Tanakama, you can't just send in the marshals and sell everything of the guy. If someone owes you money, you have to leave him his basic necessities. So Maskiv la Rav Chavga asks, why do I have to leave him my basic necessities? V'lei melei lav olai karamis. You're not my responsibility. I'm not here to give you charity. You owe me money. I lent you money. You don't have money to pay back. Allow me to confiscate everything in your house. I'm not giving you. I'm not the one responsible to give you tzedakah. That's according to the Tanakama. Amalei Abaye said, we go to the top of the page. Ivrit, it is true. When you lend somebody money, it's not only you're doing him a favor, but you're actually now taking full responsibility of him. So that if he doesn't pay you back, you have to leave over some of his items of his house and not foreclose on everything that he has so that he can live on. Alai karam, it's your responsibility. Because it says in the pasuk, Ulucha tia tzedakah. You are responsible to give tzedakah to the person that you lend money to. One of the hardest mitzvahs to do is to lend somebody money, and unfortunately he can't pay you back. It's very hard to deal with. Okay.